Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today's July 20th. Taking a look at the visible satellite imagery here, you can see not much to talk about across the region. Just this nice snow-capped mountains shown here on the GO 17 satellite imagery. You can see Mount Rainier here. Low clouds along the coastline. You can already see them start to burn off and retreat back to the coastline. You can see some low clouds made it inland here through the Strait of Juan de Fuca towards Whidbey Island. But a pretty nice day coming up here across the region. Lots of sunshine. Now checking out SeaTac yesterday, 83 degrees. That's 5 degrees above average, nowhere near that 95 degrees in 2015. You can see as we get towards later July, our average high is about 79 for SeaTac here, and that starts to wane once we get into early August here. So we are really getting into the warmest point of the year here, and we're going to highlight that here with the heat wave coming up next week. But before that, we have a few seasonable days coming up here. Probably low 80s again for Seattle, upper 80s for the Portland, Willamette Valley area, cooler along the coast. Might get even up towards 100 degrees for portions of eastern Washington today. As we scroll through into tomorrow here's Thursday afternoon, a little bit of a cool down maybe for Seattle and the Willamette Valley, Puget Sound, and the coast. Similar for eastern Washington tomorrow. So we go on in through Friday, a little bit of a cool down. You see eastern Washington drop down a little bit, maybe 10 degrees there, and Puget Sound maybe a few degrees colder. Willamette Valley back maybe towards 80 degrees, and the coastline pretty typical there. Summertime pattern coming up here, but we're going to change this as we get in towards Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week as we really start to warm things up here. Now, what's going on? We are in a light onshore flow, 10-meter winds here, and you can see these winds on the east slopes of the Cascades pick up as we go through the afternoon. That's because the heating of the interior here, as you heat this, you raise that air and you lower the pressure and you drag that wind through the gaps of the mountains here, and that's why the wind farms are so effective here on the eastern slopes of the Cascades. You really get a nice consistent wind during the summertime especially. And as we roll in through Thursday, you can kind of see that same thing pop up during the afternoon for the east slopes of the Cascades. And you can kind of see this onshore flow across the western portion of the Cascades, keeping us relatively cool, or at least not in any kind of a heat wave pattern yet. And as we go through Friday afternoon, you can kind of see the wind coming down the Strait of Juan de Fuca and the onshore flow still on the west side, and those winds again picking up on the east slopes of the Cascades in the afternoon hours. Now checking out what's coming up next week here. Here's 500 millibars, 18,000 feet. We're looking at ridge position here. What are we looking for here? You can see the ridge build out here on in through Saturday night into Sunday. Look at this thing build out over the region here. Going on into Monday afternoon, the ridge is positioned nicely. This is very favorable for a heat wave across much of the area here. So we'll continue to watch that coming up here. Let's look what the GFS says here in a moment. And this is the European Ensemble. Actually, let's go back and select that ensemble mean again here. This is sea level pressure, and we're looking at the ensemble run. Again, this is last night, 06Z run. And like I've said before, we're looking for the signature of our heat waves here, which is the thermal troughing here. And you can see it highlighted here on last night's European run. The 12Z has not run yet, so we're still looking at this kind of older model. The European runs a little bit later than the GFS. But you can see that thermal trough plainly there, highlighting that potential for the heat wave coming up next week, looking more and more likely. This is 850 millibars, 5,000 feet, European ensemble run here. And you can, if we go through this week and kind of see, you know, generally seasonable, and then you can see this heat start to build in, especially we get in through Monday morning, afternoon, and on through into Tuesday. It's going to kind of hang around here on the west coast of North America, highlighting that heat wave. Also, this warm air aloft is on its way. GFS, this is the mean ensemble. Here's 850 millibars, 5,000 feet. Same thing we were just looking at as the European here. And as we go through this weekend, you know, we're not warming up just quite yet. Once we get into Sunday, we start building this dome of warm air over the region here as we get the ridge building over the west coast of North America. Here's Tuesday afternoon. Going to Wednesday, you can kind of see that heat still existing here. And some of the models have been waffling back and forth a little bit on just how warm we're going to get, but 90s, a couple 90-degree days are a good bet for Seattle and a great bet for Portland. You're probably going to have multiple days in the 90s coming up here, but we're going to continue to watch this as we get closer. It's going to become much more clear. This is a GFS ensemble mean. This is this morning's run hot off the presses here. This is that ridge positioning. Now, as we go through into Sunday, you'll see the ridge building out here. And you can see it kind of hanging on here. And there's like the control run has been showing a little bit of a flattening of this ridge and maybe even dropping down some stronger onshore flows we're going through later next week. But the ensemble mean still has somewhat of a ridge here, but it looks like a cool down would be coming at the end of next week potentially. But we're still a ways out from that. We got to deal with the heat wave first. Looking at here, GFS 12Z 6 hour 2 meter maximum temperature here. This is definitely going to be running hot. I don't think we're going to see upper 80s for SeaTac today. Going in through tomorrow, you can see a bit of a cool down through Friday, probably around 80 degrees for Seattle. Again, the GFS is going to be running a little bit hot here. Going through Friday afternoon here, you can see the cool down, generally onshore flow continuing as we get through the weekend here, similar. And as we go on in through Sunday, you can see a little bit of a warm up start to happen here. And then Monday up towards maybe the upper 80s. You can see some 90s showing up for Tacoma and Olympia, up towards 100 for Portland down there. But again, these might be a couple degrees too hot. But you can see the heat really coming for eastern Washington. Look at the Columbia Basin well into the hundreds down here by Tuesday. Seattle probably getting up into a 90-degree day, 90 plus. And Portland probably upper 90s at this point. Looks like the coast should remain relatively cool as we go on into next week. But again, we'll continue to monitor that and see how it goes. But look at this on Wednesday. I mean, 113 degrees down here for Kennewick. Look at Seattle, probably into the 90s. Portland well into the 90s, maybe even flirting with 100 degrees next week. So heat wave is definitely on its way here. It's backed off a little bit here on the ensemble, the 06Z ensemble here for Portland. You can see the mean has 3 days of 90 degree plus on in through next week, but you can see it kind of hangs on pretty close to 90s as we go on into early next weekend here. But we'll continue to monitor this. Models have been waffling a bit, but there is definitely going to be a warm up coming next week. This is for the Seattle Tacoma. Look at the mean, actually has almost 4 days of 90 degrees here, and the control run showing 4 days of 90 degree days here as we go through next week. But check this out. This is Fantasyland out here, but look at the control run for Seattle. You can see us drop down back into the mid 70s here, and some highs only getting up to 70. Maybe some troughing will return in the extended here, but do not get your hopes up for this just yet. This is way out there, and you can see the ensemble mean is a much warmer, somewhere around the 80 degree mark, probably low 80s. So we'll watch that as it comes. Now, this is the risk of hazardous temperatures. Is what I showed yesterday, experimental, but you can see they kind of included this in the excessive heat slight area here for Western Washington, Western Oregon, excluding the coastal range here, and excessive heat moderate does include Eastern Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Western Montana, and this would extend up into BC here as well. 6 to 10 day temperature outlook issued today. You can see that above average really highlighted over eastern Washington towards the Columbia Basin there. So it looks like the heat wave is coming here, folks. 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook. Like I mentioned yesterday, the Pacific Northwest really gets very scant amounts of precipitation during the summer. So any kind of signal for below generally means very close to zero. You can see the active monsoon season continues down there for the Southwest. Above average precipitation for Alaska. 8 to 14 day. This is for July 27th to August 2nd. You can see that above average signal there for above average temperatures mainly for eastern Oregon highlighted, but this encompasses the entire Pacific Northwest, and this would include British Columbia also. And again, here's the 8 to 14 day precipitation here, and kind of a below average signal here for much of Washington, Oregon. So yeah, get out there and enjoy that. I'm kind of watching this closely. There is a little bit of discrepancy still in the model runs and just how warm we're going to get. It showed a little bit warmer yesterday versus today for the heat wave across the region, but we'll continue to monitor that. That can easily flip back here, and we're trying to look for when this heat wave is going to end too. Some of the models are hinting at it ending by late next week on into the weekend, but some of the models kind of can show that heat continuing on through next week. But that's a little bit far out there at this point, so we have to take it day at a time here. But it does look like a warm-up is definitely coming, at least for probably a 2 to 4 day heat wave for western portions of Washington, Oregon, probably excluding the coastal immediate coast range of Washington, Oregon, Vancouver Island, as well. So you're going to get some relief as you get towards the water here. Unlike last year when we had some of that offshore flow and Quileute hit 110 degrees, we're not going to get anything crazy like that for the coast here coming up in this heat wave. But we also have the potential for eastern Washington and Oregon to really bake here. You saw some of those temperatures getting up towards 110 degrees for the Columbia Basin, so we have to watch out for that as well. So yeah, we'll do this again tomorrow. I did a list here of thanks to all my supporting members here. I hope you guys don't mind that, but I just wanted to point that out. I got a lot of people supporting the page, and I wanted to give thanks for that. Very grateful. And yeah, so we will do this again tomorrow, and I'll probably post some updates today on my Twitter page, so watch out for that. And I'm also working on the convergence zone video and the windstorm video, which I'll probably release sometime in September or October once we get towards some fall weather coming our way. So yeah, have a good day. Click like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.